She had learned to move quietly through large rooms. The marble floors echoed if she walked too fast, so she always took careful steps. Every morning before sunrise, she arrived at the mansion, tied her uniform neatly, and began her work. She dusted shelves no one touched, polished glass that already shined, and folded towels that would never be used that day. It was honest work. It paid her rent. It kept food on the table. That was enough for her. She did not complain. She did not ask for favors. She spoke only when spoken to. Over the years, the house had grown used to her presence, like a piece of furniture that blended into the background. Some staff were friendly. Some ignored her. A few looked down on her. She accepted it all in silence. The mansion belonged to a billionaire who traveled often. He was known in business circles, but rarely at home. When he did come, he greeted the staff politely and kept to himself. He never raised his voice. He never insulted anyone. To her, he was distant but fair. That was more than she had known in many places before. That afternoon began like any other. She was cleaning the main sitting room, where tall windows let sunlight spill across expensive rugs. The house felt calm. Too calm, almost. She sensed something before she heard it. Sharp heels clicking on the floor, fast and confident. The sound did not belong to the regular staff. The front doors opened, and the air in the room shifted. The billionaire's mother had arrived. She was known for her strict nature and strong opinions. The staff stiffened the moment they saw her. She carried herself like a ruler entering a courtroom. Her eyes scanned the room, judging everything and everyone in seconds. Nothing escaped her notice. Her gaze landed on the maid. She paused, her lips tightening. She walked closer, examining the uniform from head to toe, as if inspecting a stain only she could see. "What is this?" she asked sharply. The maid froze. She lowered her eyes and answered softly that she was doing her assigned work. The woman did not like the tone. Or maybe she did not like the answer. Or maybe she simply did not like her. "This house has standards," the woman said loudly enough for others to hear. "And you clearly do not meet them." The maid tried to speak again, but her words were cut off. The woman stepped closer, invading her space. She complained about the uniform being poorly worn, about the maid standing incorrectly, about her presence in a room meant for guests. Each word felt heavier than the last. The room grew quiet. Staff stopped moving. No one dared to interrupt. Then, in a sudden burst of anger, the woman grabbed the front of the maid's uniform and tore it. It was not violent in a physical sense, but it was deeply humiliating. The sound of fabric ripping filled the room like a crack of thunder. The maid gasped and instinctively held the torn cloth together. Her face burned with shame. Her hand shook. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Guests stood frozen. Staff looked down. No one spoke. No one moved. The woman stepped back as if she had proven a point. "Unacceptable," she said coldly. "Absolutely unacceptable." The maid felt her throat tighten. She wanted to disappear. She wanted the floor to open and swallow her whole. Years of patience and quiet endurance pressed against her chest all at once. She did not cry. Not there. She bowed her head and whispered an apology she did not owe. Then she turned and walked away, clutching her uniform closed. Each step heavier than the last. She did not see it. But someone was standing at the top of the staircase. The billionaire had returned, home earlier than planned. He had heard the raised voice. He had seen the staff frozen in place. And he had seen the torn uniform and the way the maid walked away with her shoulders hunched, trying to make herself small. His face did not change right away, but something in his eyes did. The maid reached the service hallway and leaned against the wall, breathing slowly. Her hands trembled as she tried to adjust the torn fabric. She felt exposed, not just in body but in spirit. Memories she kept buried stirred inside her, moments from years ago, when dignity had been stripped from her just as easily. She closed her eyes and reminded herself why she stayed quiet, why she endured. She had promised herself long ago that she would survive no matter what. Pride did not feed children. Silence had kept her going. A younger staff member approached carefully and offered her a jacket. The maid accepted it with a grateful nod, unable to speak. Meanwhile, upstairs, the air felt thick. The billionaire stepped down slowly. Every step echoed. The room noticed him immediately. Conversations died before they began. He did not raise his voice. He did not rush. That somehow made it worse. What just happened? He asked calmly. No one answered at first. His mother turned toward him, surprised but unshaken. She explained the situation as if she had corrected a mistake, not shattered a person. She spoke about discipline, image, and respect, never once mentioning the maid's name, as if she were not human enough to be identified. He listened, fully, silently. When she finished, he looked around the room. At the staff, at the guests, at the floor. Where is she now? He asked. No one replied. He repeated the question. This time firmer. Someone finally pointed toward the service hall. He nodded and turned in that direction. The maid heard footsteps approaching and stiffened, fear creeping into her chest. She expected more scolding, maybe dismissal, maybe worse. When she looked up, she was shocked to see him standing there. He did not look angry at her. He looked concerned. Are you okay? He asked quietly. That question almost broke her. She nodded quickly, not trusting her voice. She tried to apologize again, but he raised a hand gently, stopping her. You don't need to say anything right now, he said. Please take a moment. He handed her his own jacket without hesitation. It was warm and heavy, expensive, but offered without a second thought. The maid stared at it, then at him. No employer had ever done that. Thank you, she whispered. He nodded once and turned back toward the main room, his expression unreadable. As she watched him leave, something inside her shifted. A small crack appeared in the wall she had built around herself for years. She did not know what would happen next, but she knew one thing. This was not over. The rest of the day passed slowly, as if time itself had become heavy. The mansion was quieter than usual. People spoke in whispers. Doors closed gently. No one laughed. The maid stayed in the staff room for a long while, sitting on a small chair with the jacket folded on her lap. She did not put it on right away. It felt too personal, too kind, and kindness sometimes scared her more than anger. She replayed the scene in her head again and again. The ripping sound, the sudden silence, the feeling of being watched while feeling invisible at the same time. She told herself she had survived worse. She always had. Still, something about this moment felt different. Like a door had opened that could never be fully closed again. When she finally stood up, she fixed the tear in her uniform as best she could and went back to work. Cleaning had always been her way of coping. When her hands were busy, her thoughts stayed quieter. She wiped counters, folded cloths, and avoided mirrors. Down the hall, the billionaire sat alone in his study. He stared out the window, but saw nothing. His mother's words echoed in his mind, sharp and cold. He had grown up with that tone. He knew it well. What unsettled him was not the anger itself, but the ease with which it had been directed at someone powerless. He remembered being younger, watching staff be ignored or spoken over, and telling himself that was just how the world worked. Today, for the first time, that excuse felt hollow. He called for the house manager and asked simple questions. How long had the maid worked here? Was she reliable? Had there ever been complaints? The answers came quickly. She was always early, never missed a day, never caused trouble. She did more than asked and never demanded anything back. That only deepened the weight in his chest. Later that evening, his mother requested dinner in the formal room. She acted as though nothing unusual had happened. She spoke about travel plans, social events, and appearances. The billionaire listened, but his mind kept drifting back to the hallway, to the way the maid had held her uniform closed like armor. At one point, he asked calmly if she believed what she did was right. His mother looked surprised, then annoyed. She insisted she had corrected disrespect, that people needed to know their place, that discipline built character. He did not argue. He only said that tearing someone's clothing was not discipline. The room fell silent. Meanwhile, the maid finished her shift late. As she prepared to leave, she hesitated outside the study door. She had been asked to come there. Her stomach twisted with fear. She smoothed her uniform one last time and knocked softly. Inside, the billionaire looked up and motioned for her to enter. He asked her to sit, which she did reluctantly, perching on the edge of the chair. He did not rush. He asked about her day, about her work, about whether she had family. The questions were gentle, not demanding. She answered carefully, choosing words that revealed little but enough. When he apologized for what had happened, she was stunned. She shook her head, trying to refuse the apology, but he insisted. He said no one deserved to be treated that way. Not here. Not anywhere. Something inside her cracked. She admitted, quietly, that she had grown used to being invisible. That speaking up had never helped her before. That she stayed because the job was stable and the pay honest. He listened without interrupting. Before she left, he told her to take the next day off, fully paid. He also told her the uniform would be replaced, not fixed. Replaced. She nodded, unsure how to respond, and left with her heart pounding. That night, she barely slept. Memories rose like unwanted guests. Years ago, she had stood in a very different place, soaked from rain, holding a crying child while chaos surrounded her. She had been younger then, stronger in ways she did not feel anymore. She had made a choice that day to protect someone she did not know, because it was the right thing to do. She had never spoken of it, not even to herself. The next morning, she stayed home. She cleaned her small apartment, watered her plants, and tried to calm her thoughts. Around noon, her phone rang. It was the house manager, asking her to come in later that afternoon. Her heart sank. She feared bad news. When she arrived, she was led not to the staff area, but to the main sitting room. Sunlight filled the space. The billionaire stood near the window. He asked her to sit. Then he asked her about her past. At first, she resisted. She said it was nothing important. He did not push. He only said that sometimes the past has a way of finding us, whether we want it to or not. Something in his voice felt familiar. Safe. Slowly, she spoke. About hardship. About loss. About a moment long ago when she had helped someone without knowing who they would become. She did not give details. She did not name names. She did not seek praise. As she spoke, his face changed. A memory stirred in him. A blurred image of a woman shielding him from rain, telling him everything would be okay when nothing was. A voice he had not thought of in years. His hands tightened. He asked one final question, his voice barely steady. Was there a child with you that day? She looked up sharply. The room felt suddenly too small. She nodded. Neither of them spoke. After that, the silence between them was no longer empty. It was heavy with meaning. Outside, the mansion stood tall and unchanged. Inside, something fragile and powerful had begun to shift, and both of them knew that what had happened was only the beginning. The silence between them did not break right away. It stretched, heavy and uncomfortable, like both were afraid that speaking would change everything. The maid lowered her eyes first. She had already said more than she ever intended. Old memories made her chest feel tight. The billionaire stepped back and sat down slowly, as if his legs had suddenly forgotten their strength. His mind raced through the past. A rainy evening. A broken car. Fear sitting deep in his stomach. A woman he had never known, standing between him and danger, holding him close while the world felt unsafe. He had been a child then. Too young to understand sacrifice. Too young to know how rare kindness could be. Now she was here, in his house, wearing a torn uniform. He asked her gently to tell him more, but made it clear she could stop any time. She hesitated, then spoke in short pieces, like someone opening an old wound carefully. She talked about how hard life had been back then, how she worked wherever she could, how that night she had only planned to pass by, but saw a child in trouble and could not walk away. She did not speak like a hero. She spoke like someone remembering pain. She said she never expected anything in return. She had not even known who the child was. After that night, life had gone on. She struggled. She lost people she loved. She learned to survive by staying quiet. The billionaire listened, his eyes never leaving her face. Every word fit into a memory he had carried, but never fully understood. The voice, the warmth, the promise that things would be okay. He stood up suddenly and walked to the window, turning his back so she would not see the emotion in his eyes. He breathed slowly, steadying himself. When he turned back, his voice was calm, but different. "That night changed my life," he said. "I never forgot it. I just never thought I would see you again." Her hands trembled in her lap. She shook her head. She said it did not matter, that she did what anyone should do, that she did not want special treatment. He stopped her. "It matters," he said firmly. "Not because of who I became, but because of who you were when no one was watching." For the first time, tears slipped down her face. She wiped them away quickly, embarrassed. Later that day, the billionaire called a meeting. Not a loud one, not dramatic, just honest. He asked his mother, the house manager, and senior staff to join him in the sitting room. The maid did not know about this meeting at first. She was back to work, her heart still heavy. When a staff member told her she was being asked to come, fear returned immediately. She walked into the room slowly. Everyone was already seated. The billionaire's mother sat straight-backed, her expression sharp and impatient. The billionaire asked the maid to sit beside him. That alone shocked the room. He spoke calmly. He explained that what had happened earlier was wrong. He did not raise his voice. He did not accuse. He simply stated the truth. His mother interrupted, insisting again that she had acted for the good of the household. He looked at her and said quietly that no good ever came from humiliation. Then he told them. He told them about the rainy night, about a woman who had nothing, yet gave protection anyway, about how that moment shaped his understanding of humanity more than any lesson money could buy. He did not reveal every detail, but he made one thing clear. "The person who saved me," he said, "is sitting here." Gasps filled the room. The maid froze, her face pale. She tried to protest, but words failed her. The billionaire's mother stared in disbelief. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked from her son to the maid, struggling to connect the story with the woman she had torn down hours earlier. The billionaire continued. He said that this house would be a place of respect, or it would not be his house at all. That anyone who worked there deserved dignity, regardless of position. He turned to the maid and apologized again, this time in front of everyone. Not as an employer, as a human being. The room remained silent. The maid felt something she had not felt in years. The meeting ended quietly. People left slowly, thoughtful, and uneasy. The billionaire's mother remained seated for a long moment before standing without a word and leaving the room. That evening, the maid sat alone outside the staff quarters, watching the sky change color. Her emotions felt tangled. Gratitude mixed with fear. Relief mixed with uncertainty. She wondered what would change now. Whether kindness would turn into pressure. Whether speaking up would cost her more than silence ever did. The billionaire joined her a short while later, keeping a respectful distance. He told her nothing would be forced, that she could stay working if she wished, or leave with support if she preferred. The choice would be hers. She nodded, overwhelmed. For the first time in a long time, she felt the ground shift beneath her feet, not because it was being pulled away, but because it was finally becoming solid. The days that followed felt different inside the mansion. Not louder, not brighter, just different in a quiet, careful way. People spoke with more thought. Doors were held open longer. Eyes met more often. It was as if everyone had realized something important without fully knowing how to talk about it. The maid returned to work after taking time to think. She had almost chosen not to come back. Fear still sat deep inside her. A lifetime of being treated as less had taught her that kindness could fade quickly. But she also felt something new pulling her forward. A sense that leaving now would mean running from a moment she needed to face. She arrived early, as she always did. A new uniform waited for her, neatly folded. It fit properly. It felt clean and untouched by shame. She ran her fingers over the fabric for a long moment before putting it on. As she walked through the halls, staff greeted her differently. Not with pity, with respect. Some smiled softly. Some nodded. No one avoided her eyes. The billionaire watched these small changes quietly. He did not make announcements. He did not give speeches. He believed real change showed itself in behavior, not words. His mother, however, remained distant. She stayed in her room most of the time. When she did appear, she spoke little. Her posture was still proud, but something in her expression had shifted. Not softness, reflection. The kind that comes when certainty is shaken. One afternoon, she requested tea in the sitting room. The maid was assigned to serve it. When she heard this, her hands grew cold. Old instincts told her to ask to be replaced, to avoid the situation, to stay safe by staying invisible. But another voice inside her, quieter but stronger, told her not to run. She prepared the tray carefully and walked into the room. The billionaire's mother looked up when she entered. Their eyes met. The air felt heavy. The maid placed the tray down slowly, her movements steady. She kept her head level, not lowered, not defiant. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the older woman spoke. Her voice was not sharp this time. It was controlled, almost tired. "I did not know," she said. The maid did not respond right away. She was not sure what was expected of her. "I judged you," the woman continued, "without knowing you, without asking." The words hung in the air. They were not warm. They were not gentle. But they were honest. The maid nodded once. She did not offer comfort. She did not offer blame. The woman looked away, staring into her tea. "I was raised to believe power gave permission," she said quietly. "I see now that it only reveals character." That was all she said. The maid left the room with her heart pounding. It was not an apology, but it was something she had never received before. That evening, the billionaire asked the maid to join him for a walk on the grounds. Not as an order, as an invitation. They walked slowly beneath tall trees as the sun began to set. He asked her how she felt. Not what she planned to do. Not what she wanted from him. Just how she felt. She told him the truth. She said she was tired. Tired of surviving. Tired of silence. Tired of being strong when no one noticed. She said she did not know who she was outside of work and responsibility. He listened. He told her that strength did not mean staying small. That dignity did not mean suffering quietly. That the world only changed when people chose to face discomfort. She said she was afraid of change. He smiled gently and said, "Fear did not mean weakness. It meant something mattered." In the days that followed, he made changes throughout the household. Clear rules about treatment. Clear expectations about respect. Not written for show. Lived every day. The maid noticed that when she spoke, people listened. She noticed that when mistakes happened, they were corrected without cruelty. She noticed that for the first time, she was not counting the days until something went wrong. One evening, she sat alone in her apartment, thinking about her life. About the long road that had led her here. About the rainy night that had connected her fate to someone she never expected to see again. She realized something then. She had never asked to be saved. She had simply chosen to save someone else. And now, without asking, life had circled back, not to reward her, but to remind her that dignity, once claimed, could not be taken away again. The morning light came softly through the windows, touching the walls without asking permission. The maid stood in the quiet kitchen, holding a warm cup in both hands. She had slept better than she expected. Not deeply, but without fear. That alone felt like progress. She thought about the choice she had been given. Stay, leave, shape something new. For years, her life had been about reacting, not choosing. Now the weight of decision rested with her, and it felt strange. When she arrived at the mansion later that day, the house felt steady, familiar, but calmer. The billionaire greeted her the same way he always had, with a polite nod. No attention drawn, no performance, just respect. He asked if she would walk with him later. She agreed. They walked along the long path at the edge of the property, where trees opened to a wide field. The air smelled clean. He spoke carefully, choosing his words like someone who understood that power should be handled gently. He told her he wanted to make things right, not just for her, but for everyone who worked there. He said he planned to change how the household operated. Clear protection, fair pay, a voice for those who had none. He also told her she did not owe him anything. She listened quietly. When it was her turn to speak, she surprised herself. She said she wanted to stay, not because she needed the job, but because she wanted to be part of something that could be better. She said she wanted her work to matter, not just be endured. She said she wanted younger workers to feel safer than she ever had. He smiled, not wide or proud, but relieved. From that day on, small changes grew into real ones. Meetings were held where staff could speak freely. Schedules became fairer. Mistakes were corrected with guidance instead of anger. The maid noticed that new workers looked less afraid. She noticed she was asked for her opinion. She noticed she was no longer shrinking when someone raised their voice nearby. The billionaire's mother watched all of this from a distance. She did not interfere. She did not approve out loud. But she observed. One afternoon, she stopped the maid in the hallway. The maid froze for just a second, then steadied herself. "I was wrong," the older woman said. No excuse followed. No explanation. Just the truth, spoken plainly. The maid nodded once. She did not smile. She did not bow. She accepted the words and continued on her way. That night, the maid returned to her small apartment and sat by the window. She thought about the long path her life had taken, the losses, the nights she cried quietly so no one would hear, the strength she had built without knowing it. She realized that dignity was not something others gave her. It was something she had carried all along. Weeks passed. The story of what happened never spread beyond the walls of the house. There were no headlines, no interviews, no public praise. And that felt right. The maid continued her work, but with a lighter step. The billionaire continued his business, but with clearer values. The house continued to stand, but no longer on silence. One evening, as the sun dipped low, the maid paused in the doorway before leaving. She looked back at the place that had once made her feel small. It no longer did. She walked away with her head held high, knowing that respect, once claimed, had changed her life. And somewhere inside that large, quiet house, the lesson remained. True power does not tear people down. It stands up when it matters most.